Hello and welcome. Welcome to Diverse Conversations. This is Ashka Patel. Thank you very much for joining me today as we start a new series on our podcast, which is the Sustainability in Healthcare series. It gives me immense pleasure to launch the series today because here we'll be discussing and speaking with innovators in the Canadian landscape who are truly, working towards creating a greener future for all of us by creating solutions within healthcare and in pharmacy in particular to help us become much more sustainable, much more greener in terms of the supplies and the solutions we use, but also helping us understand, why sustainability is so important just from a healthcare perspective. Sustainability has its cost, not just in the amount of waste we produce or the emissions we produce, but it also has an impact on our overall health outcomes. And if anything, if we do not work towards a greener climate or greener earth, we are putting our lives and our health at risk by, being much more exposed and prone to chronic conditions. So with that in mind, I'm really excited to launch this 5-part series where we'll be speaking with some industry leaders and healthcare professionals who are leading the way in helping us become more greener through the solutions that they've designed, through the ideas and the work that they're leading in their individual spaces, to make sure that there's enough conversation happening, there's advocacy happening, and there's innovation happening to lead us to a greener future. So stay tuned. I'm really excited to launch this series. The first episode will be launched on June the 9th, featuring none other than Sandrine Milante. Before we move forward, I just want to also acknowledge EcoloPharm for being our sponsor for the series, where we'll be speaking about sustainability in healthcare and in pharmacy. EcoloPharm is a leader in sustainable development. EcoloPharm was the first company to offer pharmacies eco-friendly packaging products for dispensing medications. Their expertise consists in designing and manufacturing the most innovative, sustainable, and eco-friendly packaging solutions in order to help pharmacies reduce their environmental impact. So make sure EcoloPharm has always stood for innovative packaging for a greener future, and we could not be asked for a better partner for this series, as EcoloPharm truly walks the talk and has been a pioneer in the space of creating green pharmacy solutions. It gives us an immense pleasure to be able to partner with EcoloPharm to bring forward the series to you. And I hope you enjoy the series and learn from it, and hopefully implement some of the solutions we discuss here, as it will truly help our planet, especially curb climate change and make sure that we're able to leave a greener planet for our future generations. With that in mind, I cannot wait to dive deeper with Sandrine in terms of why sustainability, why pharmacy solutions, and how did the two come together. Stay tuned. Well, thank you very much for joining me back. And now we have Sandrine joining us. Sandrine, welcome to Diverse Conversations. And first of all, let me tell you what an honor it is to have you on this podcast. Because, I really see you as somebody who has been an innovator and a leader, especially within the sustainability space in the Canadian landscape. But as we get to know more about you, I won't be surprised that you're leading this movement more on a global level as well. But before we jump into that, I just want to say welcome. Thank you so much for making this time to have this conversation with us. We are excited to have this conversation with you today.
And thank you very much, Aska. It's really a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you. So before we get started, it would be great if you could, share a little bit about your journey with us and, what led you to create EcoloPharm and how did it come into existence?
Yeah, well, very quick story points. I wasn't looking to be an entrepreneur or something like that. I was hoping to be able to teach at a university level. I was a passionate student in political science. So you see that it was not at all what I'm doing right now, but politics brings us everywhere. So that's what happened to me. I started to help in a family business that was doing plastic injection molding pieces. They were subcontractors. They were doing custom molding for any people that needed to have a plastic pieces molded. And there was those customers we were working for that were asking us to mold vials. So plastic vials for prescription medication. We were doing the good old push and turn vial with a polystyrene base, a cap made of polyethylene, and a liner in it. We were also doing arrow vial. You need to align the arrows, and then again a polyethylene cap, a polystyrene vial. And all of those pieces were manufactured on different production line using electricity, water, put everything in bags and boxes, storage, take it back from storage, capping everything together, put this back in another bag, in another box to go and be shipped to the pharmacies. And I was looking at that saying, that doesn't make sense.
Agreed.
It's not optimized. There was a lot of waste in every step in our own plan. I wasn't even looking at what was happening in pharmacies. I was just looking at what we had and say, that doesn't make sense. So I started to ask questions, and I'm kind of raising a flag here. Sustainability starts by asking questions. Why are we doing things that way? Right. And the answers that I was receiving was just, it was a mess. Right. I received information that, oh, well, we're doing this because our references from 1974 says us that's what pharmacists needs. Right. I said, okay, I'm sorry. In 2000 and something, a reference from 1974 doesn't make sense anymore. Right. And I was just really shocked to see that no one in more than 40 years have thought of rethink the whole process and rethink about those products that were used by thousands of pharmacies across the country. And that's where the idea came. And in 2009, I designed products. I've patented some ideas, a complete new line of product that were eco-designed to be able to reduce the whole carbon footprint of the product, and also just answer better the need of the pharmacies of the year 2008 something, not 1974, where I wasn't even born. So right. So that's the thinking behind it.
That's amazing. And I mean, I have to commend you because to even ask those questions or to kind of be the first one to be like, why are we still looking at references from 1974? And why hasn't there been more done since then, right? Like, why are we not evolving in this space? And, that brings me to my next question. Obviously you have this passion for sustainability, but what is your motivation behind going green and, creating these sustainable pharmacy solutions? What is your driving force, if I may ask?
Well, the point is, we all know that there's a lot of work to do on single-use packaging. Yes. Packaging is a real issue. If it's not in a recyclable material, it gets in landfill. Even if it's recyclable, unfortunately, it gets in landfill. So there's a lot of issue through that matter of single-use packaging. And we're talking a lot about food, the food industry, the restaurants, and they're generating a lot of waste. But the second industry domain that generates the most waste is pharmacies. Yes. There's a lot of different kind of waste in cosmetics. There's a lot of waste in the cosmetic departments. There's a lot of waste in everything that is wellness with vitamins and stuff like that. So also the shampoo bottles and everything that a pharmacy procures. And
Right.
unfortunately, it's the core of their business. But the other side of it is the lab, the
Mm-hmm.
meds. Even if we are looking to put on the shelf better shampoo bottles or a better cosmetic product, behind the counter, there's a lot that we don't see. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of waste generated, and there's also that little more there's a lot more standard to meet. There's the most important thing is to protect the medication, and
Right.
that's the role also of a pharmacist, to
Mm-hmm.
be sure to be able to serve properly the medication that is needed. So that was kind of a challenge, a little more interesting to me, to say there's no one looking at that because it's too hard.
Yes.
And that's not enough to stop me. It's really, I cannot believe that no one is acting on this.
Mm-hmm.
There's renewal of your script every 30 or 90 days. We need to find more sustainable solution in that side of the pharmacy business. that
Absolutely.
that's what's driving me, is to be sure that that issue of the single-use packaging, we're
Mm-hmm.
not just looking at the front of the store where there's easy solution, but we think a little bit more on the whole story of medication packaging.
I agree. I agree. And thank you for shedding that light, because I this is often the statistic we don't talk about enough, right? In terms of, what is our carbon footprint as a profession? What is our waste? What is the waste that we generate as an industry or as a profession, or healthcare in general? I feel like we get away with it under the disguise of patient safety by saying, we need to generate this waste because it's patient safety at the end of the day. But as you rightly ask those questions, is this really necessary for this waste to be produced? And why are we not doing more? Why are we not focusing on this more? And I think I would really like to kind of see, you have spoken about this a little earlier, where you said about patenting your, the designs and the technology.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see if you could talk a little bit more about that in terms of, how is EcoloPharm addressing the challenges, especially with climate change, becoming such a big concern now. And we know climate change impacts, our lives as well, like our overall
Yeah.
health in terms of, the health conditions we have, our chronic conditions that we have. I would love to hear kind of, how are you bringing about that change through your products? And if you could talk a little bit more about that, please.
Yes, of course. So what we've decided to do, it's not just to put on the market another product that will be labeled as recycled and say, okay, we've done what we have to do. We've changed the material and now it's a recycled product. Because before that, remember, 13 years ago, when we've launched our first generation of vials, we were the first one to put a product in polypropylene on the market.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it officially, for the first time, a recyclable product.
Wow.
Because before that, it was polystyrene, polyethylene with liners. So nothing was even recyclable. And we're talking about 2010. So it's kind of a little bit of a shock to see.
Mm-hmm.
No one even made the effort to change the material to a recyclable material before we did. In 2010, when we've launched our first generation of vial,
Mm-hmm.
about 6 months later, the whole Canadian industry changed their material.
Wow.
Because it kind of, they kind of just realized, I'm not going to swear, I'm sorry, but it's really close to it. They just realized, why haven't we done that little effort,
Right.
just that. So that's one of the thing I'm the
Right.
proudest, is really to realize that in 6 months we've pushed a big change in the whole industry. And at least everyone is now using material that are recyclable. But what we're doing is a lot more. The point of EcoloPharm, the business that we've built, is to rethink of every step of the industrial process, from where the material is coming from, how is it transformed, what is the toxicity of that material, not for us, not for the patient, for the ones that are transforming it. The first steps of transforming the plastic, there's a lot of level of toxicity depending on the plastic.
Yes.
And there's people that could get sick if you're asking for them to produce and to chemically transform that material.
Right.
So we have to be aware of our impact on every level of our industrial process, and being able to reduce that impact, measure it, and reduce it. And after that, having the best product is the second, well, almost the end of our concern.
Right.
Is to look and to attach everything together and to say, we have a better way of producing a product, but how could we make that product also better for the ones that are using that product at the end of the chain? And what we bring is more efficiency for pharmacists, because we've just, again, asked, do you really need that? Do you really need so many SKUs, so many pieces? And every time we're taking something out of the market, we're using less resource, we're using less electricity, and there's less. Every time a pharmacist is losing time, it's energy.
Yes.
It's someone that's working to do something that has no value and costs energy. And energy, at one point, it's gas emissions.
Wow.
So it's that thinking that we've put in place to be able to say, what is our action on climate change? It's to be sure that every step of the way we're reducing the impact and measuring it. That's really important. You need to measure to be sure of what you're saying.
I agree 100%. And, I can relate to it as a healthcare provider myself, in terms of, we can only be certain about our impact when we measure it. Like, just like we help our patients, bring down their blood pressure, bring down their blood sugars, whatever it is, it's the same goes to this concept where, we are trying to understand. And thank you so much for shedding so much light on this, because I as a healthcare provider, to be honest, like, I did not understand sustainability until I took a personal interest in terms of trying to understand, how can I even start thinking of going green as a healthcare provider, and, like, what is it that I can contribute? And I would not call myself an expert, and that's why I have you, because I see you as an expert in this space. And I think what you have just shared, there's so much to kind of take away from it, because one of the things we need to, start thinking of as a profession is, what is our usage cycle in terms of, where does a product start to where it lands, and, what are the touch points where we are, creating more waste than we are actually, trying to curb that waste. Are we even making any efforts to curb that? And, one thing, as you were mentioning about all this, one thing that kind of flagged in my mind is, central fills. And I don't know if you have had experience with them, but I have had experience with them. And it's unfortunate because each individual medication now comes in a plastic bag, individually wrapped. And I'm just like, why? So imagine trying to pick up prescriptions for my parents who take a few medications. It would be like at least 4 or 5 different bags, medication individually bagged in individual plastic bags. And I'm just like, why are we doing this? Is this necessary? Can there be better systems? Can there be better processes in place to help this? And I think what you have achieved with the EcoloPharm, you are really making a dent in this. And I think what I would love to hear more about is, if you're able to kind of summarize your impact, because I know you're measuring it in terms of what you were able to achieve. So I'd really love to kind of hear what were you able to achieve. And I think that would really serve as a motivation to a lot of people listening to us.
Well, I have those numbers in front of me because I don't know them by heart.
That's okay.
Yeah, we're, like I said, we're measuring everything. And
Mm,
I'm gonna give just a very large
mm,
picture of, if I'm telling you that we're molding our products,
right.
we're molding a vial, a cap, and a snap cap, a non-secure version of the
Mm-hmm.
vial,
Mm-hmm.
all in once. It's
Wow.
only one piece. It's a multifunctional product. It's molded in one piece. So just to see, if you have one line of production molding a vial, another
Mm-hmm.
one molding a cap, another one molding a non-secure cap, and you're having after that some steps to assemble
Mm-hmm.
everything, imagine if you could do this in one step.
Yes.
So energy consumption, water consumption, cardboard, everything is reduced from the get-go.
Wow.
And that's the real solution when you're putting on the market a product that is sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So the impact that we had in 10 years of our product on the market, we've saved 8.6 million of kilowatts in electricity.
Wow.
We've saved 2,600 and something tons of plastic. We've saved 1.7 million bags because we're not using any plastic bags anymore.
Wow.
When you're molding a product in one
Mm-hmm.
piece and you have robots that you need to invest
Right.
also in optimization in your process.
Mm-hmm.
We're using a lot of robots. So the robots is closing the vial directly in the machine. There's no one touching your product. So it's, once it's closed, it's clean. It could go directly in a box. You don't need a plastic bag to protect it or everything. So you need to really think the whole process. I I I I have the feeling that I'm always repeating myself. It's it's that important is to be able to look at all of your steps.
Mm.
And so the impact also that we had, we've safeguarded against 9,600 tons of CO2,
Wow.
430 tons of cardboard. And by switching from, in our compliance packaging, for example, we're
Right.
not using PVC. PVC,
Mm.
in our understanding, and it's scientifically proven, it's a toxic material.
Right.
It's not recyclable, so
Mm.
that's an issue in the end of life. But in
Mm-hmm.
from the first step of transformation, it's toxic for the workers. It could
Mm.
give them cancer and everything. So we're refusing to work with those kind of material. And so by switching from PVC to polypropylene, all of our products are made from polypropylene.
Mm-hmm.
We've safeguarded against 460 tons of PVC
Wow.
that no workers were exposed to the toxicity because we never asked for that product to be manufactured.
Wow. I'm
It's
at a loss
it's
of
a lot of
words.
numbers. It's a lot of numbers, and we have pharmacies from all across the country to thank for those numbers,
Right.
because we're achieving that impact because there's pharmacists that are
Mm-hmm.
engaged in having that impact and supporting our initiatives and using our product. As of today, I have to say thank you to more than 4,500 pharmacies across the country that are using our product.
That's
So there's a lot of pharmacies that have understood that they need to act. They need
mm-hmm.
to find a better way of packaging their meds. And our solution is really easy to understand, easy to use, and easy to supply in pharmacies.
That's incredible. Wow. Thank you for, sharing those numbers. Because I mean, this is my first time kind of being exposed to, how large of a scale you have been able to make an impact on. Again, this is not something we talk about enough, or we don't even talk about it, to kind of understand, just how important it is to make these system changes and the system level thinking, to even, bring about these changes. And I'm sure, like, you've been a trooper trying to do this by yourself for the past decade, trying to figure this out. But again, I commend all those pharmacies who are now thinking in this direction, and I hope more and more pharmacies will continue to join this movement that you're creating, so that we're able to create this greener future for the future generations, especially, but also playing our part in making sure that we are not becoming the ones responsible for creating a lot of waste, unnecessary waste, especially as well. And that leads me to, you did highlight a few points as you were talking about, some of these measurement, outcome measures that you currently measure. What are some differences that one can kind of expect, let's say, between an EcoloPharm product compared to other regular products which may not have that sustainably lens to it? And I think this is more like, this would really help a lot of these owners and pharmacy professionals understand what makes products more sustainable, and how are they considered to be more greener?
It's it on our vials, it's really easy to see it, to understand it, when I'm saying that instead of using 3 production line and different boxes and plastic bag, we're using 1 production line that is doing one complete product, that vial and the cap attached together. You could change it in a non-secure if you want. So there's a lot less SKU numbers to work with, so it takes less space in your inventory. It's easier to manage. You're gonna save time in your workflow. So with the vials, usually it's really easy to understand. You see a box coming in with 1 product, and you don't have to order any caps or anything. With the compliance packaging, it's a little harder to see, because our compliance packaging, in a very basic way of comparing with the others, we're using more, if you're looking at the product only, we're using more plastic. So most of the time we have people saying, well, your weight is 30 grams and the others are 19 grams, so it's better to use the others. And we're saying, well, the others are done with PVC. So all of what I've talked about toxicity, of course, doesn't have toxicity for you because it's stabilized as a product at the end, but it had an impact on someone else somewhere. So there's that. But after that, it's, again, we're not using plastic bags. You're receiving a product that is manufactured in a zero waste facility. So all of this, again, we're saying it's not just by looking the product that you could understand how the impact is. It's really in asking yourself, how is it made? It's like, plastic, there's a lot of variety of plastics. There's a lot of grade of plastics. Plastics are not equal all the time, and there's plastic that could come from everywhere across the world. So if you're looking at a plastic product and saying, oh, well, it looks like a good plastic that could be recycled. Yeah, but where is it from? When we're talking about local purchasing, it helps the environment. It gets also to manufacturers as us to look at how could we encourage the local industry and be sure that it's manufactured, it's transformed in local facilities.
Mm-hmm.
We are manufacturing everything. We're not getting our product from anywhere else. We're manufacturing directly in Canada. We have our own facility running 24 hours a day. So you have the guarantee that it's coming from a local facility.
Right.
And our own suppliers are also local suppliers.
Mm.
We're a B Corp company. It's
Yes.
not just environmental factors that we're looking at our impact on the society, the community, our own workers, the workers in our suppliers facility, and everything in a very holistic matter. And that's what makes a difference. And it's hard to understand it when you're just looking at the product.
Yes.
It's a lot more than that.
Exactly, exactly. And thank you for shedding that light, especially on the fact that, you're a B Corp company. And if I remember it correctly, you had also in your introduction, we also mentioned that your company is one of the only manufacturers in this field to hold this B Corp status in the entire world. Like that in itself is a huge you get recognition in terms of, how you are, what your processes are like, what are you thinking about. Can you shed a little bit more light on that in terms of, how did you go about achieving that status? Because I'm sure it was no small feat.
It wasn't, but at one point, it was it was not easy. I cannot say that it was easy, and it's still not easy because we're audited every 3 years, and we need to show that we are still improving. So it's hard. But B Corp is for benefit corporation. So B Corp have set standard of industries all across the world, and they're asking for benefit corporation to be able to prove that they have put in place practices that are benefit. So it's just, you need to be the best of breed. You need to look at your governance, at your employee status, your customers, your suppliers, your environmental footprint, your social impact, everything as a whole. It's responsibility. It's social responsibility. So you need to look at every one of those boxes and show that you are not just engaged in reducing your impact, you're reducing what's negative. You need to prove that you're able to have a positive impact.
Got it.
So it's hard.
That's hard.
It is. But for a company that was created with that mission, it made sense.
Right.
There's a lot of things. We've took almost 10 years between the beginning of the company and the B Corp certification. We took 10 years to put in place our process, to measure it, and to be able to show that we have a positive impact. It's not just reducing the negative, it's creating the positive.
That's incredible.
This is the mission that we've put in place 13 years ago, and we're kind of building more on this.
And you continue to live those values and the mission with which you started this company. And that is incredible. It's no small feat. Let me just, first of all, congratulations. I think it's a true Canadian proud moment right now, to, see what you have accomplished and, just how much you have not only taken sustainability, but also just, generating that whole environment of, creating that community with your operations and all of that. And I think that speaks volumes to you as a leader and as a businesswoman. And, you are an inspiration certainly to me in terms of, how to be a good entrepreneur. But I'm
still
sure
having fun. still having fun.
And
That's
still,
so
that's
important.
I agree. I agree 100%. If you're not having fun with the work you're engaged in, what's the fun in doing that work, right?
Exactly.
But I'm sure, like just like every entrepreneur, every business, we always think about the bottom lines. And for you to create this company on such high standards, obviously, is never an easy feat when you're trying to just like grow this enterprise altogether. But oftentimes, and this is conversation that I also hear with a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my friends and healthcare providers in general, or even just anyone who is like thinking of sustainability, we always think that sustainability is expensive. We always think that there's more cost associated with thinking sustainable alternatives, or implementing them into our business or whatever, or especially in pharmacies, like we know margins are dwindling down because of a lot of funding cuts and all of that's happening. What are some cost differences, I guess, just to give a realistic picture? Because I think oftentimes we get misguided by this notion that sustainability is expensive, but I have a feeling it may not be. So let's talk about that and kind of hear it from the pro.
I'm always saying that if sustainability initiatives are costing you more, it's because you're not doing it properly. Reality for our products, if we're just looking at our vials are costing exactly the same as the competition.
Wow.
And it doesn't count the fact that we're increasing your efficiency, your workflow is more efficient, and you're going to save a little more. But just looking at pricing, it's the same as the competition, because when I'm telling you that we're using 35% less plastic, 55% less electricity, 40% less cardboard, it shows on the price.
Yes.
It shows. If we were able to save waste at our level, it shows on your pricing. So if someone is just looking at a product and saying, okay, my product is not recyclable, I'm going to change the material for something else that is costing me more, and you're not looking at reducing the amount you're using, you're just doing a change to have something easier to recycle or whatever, of course it's going to cost more. But it's not sustainable. It's just putting a plaster on an issue that you haven't thought through your whole process.
That's right.
After that, if you're looking at our compliance packaging is costing more than the competition. But if you're looking again at the efficiency of our product, if I'm telling you in the automation system, our compliance packaging is it's generating 10 to 15 times less jumpers.
Wow.
From sales to sales. It's gonna save you time. It's gonna save you the work of someone switching those pills back to where they belong. So yes, our products are a little more expensive at the first step when you're purchasing them, but the whole gain that you're going to have in your ecosystem by using our product, and also the statement that you're showing to your customers, the loyalty of the customers that you're going to get from advertising the fact that you're using a more sustainable product, and the engagement of your team behind the change. The mindset of customers have changed in the past 6 to 7 years. And they're asking corporation to make those changes. If pharmacies are not doing those changes, they're going to lose staff and customers in the long term, because someone else is going to do it. Someone else is going to have a big marketing communication saying, we are sustainable. And you're going to see a switch of your customers, because it's corporate responsibility. You need to be able to make that change at one point. So yeah, when you're purchasing the product, it might cost a little more, but it's a better product in your workflow. So you're going to save time, you're going to save money, and you're clearly going to save your staff and your customers. You're going to engage them behind you.
Exactly. And I'll just wrap this up, but I think it's incredible when you shared that, your Ecolo vials are exactly the same price as a competitor,
Yep.
which is not a sustainable alternative, or sustainable to the point that you have created the Ecolo vials to be at. That itself is an incredible statistic to kind of think about for a moment and be like, okay, sustainability is not expensive. And just the way you kind of mentioned about the compliance packaging, obviously time's so important. Like, we know there's a shortage of staff, we know there's we don't have enough people on the floors to help us as we used to in the past. And what is it that can save us time and human resources is making sure we use quality equipment and dispensing solutions, so that we don't have to necessarily have so many hands working on that one process, where we could be utilizing the minimal staff that we have in other operations as well. And as you rightly mentioned, I think the most important benefit that I can get out of this, and as a consumer of healthcare especially, would be, you are a business engaging in sustainable solutions. You're being responsible as a business, and I appreciate that. And more than that, you are purchasing solutions which are not creating any toxic health effects to the workers who created these products in the first place, right? Yeah. Like, that is so important. Like, we don't think about that part in terms of, how are we consuming things, and, what impact does it have on people who are producing those things for us to consume? But today you have shed that light, and now I can never go back to not thinking otherwise. So
it's also part of the role. We're aligned with the role of a pharmacist. Yes. We need to be sure that people are in good health.
Yes.
We're not looking for them to be sicker and sicker so we could prescribe more medication. That doesn't make sense with the mission of a pharmacist. And that's what we also want to be sure at our level, is not to create another problem behind it. And pollution is also one of a big problem on the health system.
Yes.
So we need, as healthcare provider, like pharmacists, we need to really see our whole impact, and looking at reducing our carbon footprint, reducing the level of pollution. Yes, is helping the health of the people, and that's the mission of a pharmacist. So exactly. So it's attached.
Agreed. I think it's a very synergistic relationship in terms of we're all working towards that same goal, which is to help our patients live better quality lives. And it's, I think it's great that we're able to find this synergy in terms of, you being a manufacturer and an innovator in the space where you're creating these solutions for us, so that we are able to support our patients in direct and indirect ways, right, in leading healthier lives. So thank you so much for that. And I think my next question to you, I guess, because you are you're doing such incredible work with EcoloPharm. Can you tell us a little bit more in terms of, how are you leading the charge? I see you as that lone innovator in the space, and it would be great to kind of see how are you motivating others to kind of take on this and other sustainability initiatives or any community involvement activities that you do.
It's I'm that's the little part of my goal of being a teacher that is coming back every time I have a chance to educate. I need I want people to understand what is a good initiative in sustainability, right, how to think differently, and this is what I'm committed to do when I'm on the board of a foundation and a nonprofit organization that wants to act in their community with small initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
The Council for Sustainable Industry, for an example, is a big organization that is doing advocacy at the government level. I'm the vice president of that organization, to be able to talk with the politics side of where are our barriers to be able to change the way business is done in the pharmacy business. And this is something that I'm doing to be able to just change the standard, find another way of doing things, and not satisfy yourself with 1974 references.
Yes.
If I'm gonna tell you, Health Canada is not allowing us to use recycled material inside vials or compliance packaging, because
Wow.
many years before, there were no possibility for recyclers to recertify an FDA recycled plastic. So Health Canada have kind of done a melting pot of material and say, since we have to be FDA approved, we cannot use recycled material. Today, technology have evolved, and a lot of recycled material could be recertified FDA. So we need to change that, because we're stuck with barriers that doesn't allow us to improve as much as we could our impact and our carbon footprint, because there's an old perception that recycled material are not FDA. It's not true anymore. So I need to advocate on this. I need to be on as many stage to be able to talk about this. And what I want to have as a person, like the impact that I want to have, is to be sure that companies understand how it's not easy, but almost how easy it is to be curious and question yourself properly and start a change.
I agree.
This is why I'm involved in a lot of community, business, commerce, business, industrial program to educate and to make people more aware of where to start. Because that we need to start.
Agreed. We definitely need to. And I'm so glad that you are leading the charge in terms of even helping people understand where to start. Because, as I mentioned to you, I do not know I do not know much about sustainability. I'm just in the beginner phase of it, where I'm learning about it. But it would be great and I'm really hoping that this conversation today will incite so many of those dialogues. And, I really do hope that a lot of people will reach out to you, to tap into that expertise that you have, because really what you have created through EcoloPharm is incredible. And I can only see you doing more and more, growing in terms of the product solutions that you have available in the near future. Speaking of which, I would love to kind of hear, what can we expect next from EcoloPharm, and any pipeline launches or anything that we can anticipate in terms of new products. That'd be great.
Yes, there is. We've launched products almost every 3 years for the past 13 years. We're about to have something new. I'm not going to be able to share.
Okay.
But it's we're looking at every kind of packaging solution that pharmacies are using. I'm always saying to my teams, if we're not able to do something better than the others, we're not going to do it.
Right.
We don't want to copy something and make it look green if
Mm-hmm.
it's not. We need
Yes.
to have a big coherence with our values.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes time.
Yes.
We're eco-designing everything, and we have two new lines of products that we're working on right
Oh.
now for the packaging, a kind of packaging where we're not there yet in pharmacies. So we're going to be there in less than a year.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll definitely make sure that, our listeners have your website address so they can keep an eye out on that. And if they're able to subscribe to any on your, in terms of recent developments, I'm sure they'll be able to catch it on there. And obviously following you on LinkedIn would also be another way to make sure that we
Yeah, of
keep an
course.
eye out for those
Exactly.
in the
Exactly.
pipeline. Sandrine, this has been great conversation, but before I let you go, I do want to ask you just two wrap-up questions, kind of to wrap up our conversation and really kind of also understand, how do you envision, as a leader in sustainable pharmacy health and healthcare solutions, like, how do you envision the future of healthcare industry and the pharmacy industry from a sustainability lens, especially, like, where do you see that future going and how do you see us achieving that?
Well, I hope that pharmacies will continue to adopt better sustainable products
Mm-hmm.
in every part of their business before legislation and government impose decisions. And this is really what we're hoping, that companies, corporation, and pharmacies are gonna get things done and moving on
Mm,
their own path and not waiting to be forced by the government.
right.
Because this allows you to really, like I said before, engage your customers and your staff behind it,
Mm-hmm.
and be at the front of the wave, not being pushed. I, I feel like pharmacists are already enough pushed by a lot of
Yes.
political changes and
Yes.
regulation. Sustainability need to be something that you do from your heart.
Heart.
You believe in it, you understand that it's important to do it.
Mm,
It's not something that you won't be pushed through your throat. So
absolutely.
that's what I'm hoping to see, and to be honest, I see it on the market, so
Yes.
good thing. um what I'm hoping also is, just maybe, if big pharmaceutical companies
Mm,
that are already uh, generating a lot of waste, if they could on their side also ask themselves what how could they support pharmacies
mm.
reducing their carbon footprint. They're not there yet,
Yeah.
and
Nope.
there's kind of that disconnect, or at one point pharmacist wants to do a big difference,
Yes.
but it's so much the end of the line.
Mm,
It's limited, and we need big pharmaceutical companies to sit down with companies like EcoloPharm and
yes.
say, you know what, you're right. Circularity is something that we need to do all together, because
Mm-hmm.
we're all generating waste. We're all transforming plastic at one point. We need to do something in a more collaborative
Yes.
way. So that's what I'm hoping to see within the next few years, because that would make a great change for pharmacies if they're not if we could work on that disconnect
Mm-hmm.
between pharmaceutical pharmacies and packaging suppliers like us.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you know what, you're so right on that, because also, like, I feel like that collaboration between all these industries would be critical in also pushing for that change, which you advocate for so strongly through your various, participations on community in various associations and boards, is like, the regulatory standards that need to be changed so that they're more up to the times and the technology that we have today. And that can only happen when there's enough push for that to happen on a more political level, right?
Exactly.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think my last question would be like, for pharmacies who are looking to implement more sustainable alternatives, what is an advice that you can give in terms of how can they get started? What is the first step that they need to take? And, how can they work with EcoloPharm to begin this journey to sustainability?
Well, how they could work with EcoloPharm is very simple. Call us and we'll help you with that. We have sustainable material, marketing material to help them understand and train their staff and talk to their customers about it. We're having a very good onboarding program to be sure that pharmacies are well support in that change. So that's really easy. But what I would like to say to pharmacies, it's the cost and the risk of greenwashing. It could really, really have a huge impact on reputation and the credibility of your initiatives. So please talk to EcoloPharm. Be sure that you're not taking a solution, using a solution and pushing your responsibility on the end user. I'm always saying it's good to have a recyclable product, but you're pushing the responsibility on the end user to put it in the right recycle bin. If his municipality is recycling, maybe not. You're kind of pushing everything at the end of life, and there's so much more we could do in our own four walls before doing that, before pushing it to the end user. So ask yourself how you could be sure that when it's in your hand, you have already reduced the carbon footprint as much as possible, and not just hoping for someone else to do the right thing at the end of life.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. What wise words to end this important conversation. And Sandrine, I'd love it if we can have you back at some point in the near future to kind of do a second take on this, right? Because I feel like you have such expertise and immense amount of knowledge in this space, and rightly so, because that's the reason why you're such a recognized leader in terms of sustainable pharmacy solutions that you have been able to provide and create when nobody was even touching this area. And I can't thank you enough for your leadership in terms of trying to get us here, because I know you have motivated so many professionals like myself to think about sustainability and be like, is what I'm doing really necessary? Or are the products that I'm using, are they in line with the values of green and climate change and all of that? So thank you for this conversation. I look forward to hosting you again in the near future, and would love to continue this conversation and take it forward from there.
Well, thank you very much, Aska. On the next episode, we should talk about plastic, bioplastic, and all of those crappy solutions. There's a lot more to say.
Absolutely. Would love to have you back on that. And we can certainly make sure that we educate our frontline to make sure that they understand the differences between these materials as well. Exactly. But thank you, Sandrine, for your time. I really look forward to, continuing this change that you're leading. And I look forward to seeing what EcoloPharm has in store for us in the very near future. I'm very excited for that launch, and all the very best with that. And I'm certain it'll be a success, just like all your other products.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone that's listening. Thanks.
Awesome. And with that, we'll be wrapping up this conversation, but be sure to follow Sandrine's work on LinkedIn. All the links are in the description box below, along with the EcoloPharm website. So make sure to keep an eye on that because Sandrine has some really cool products that she has in the pipeline that we don't want to miss on. With that, we will say goodbye for today, but stay tuned for next Friday for our second episode on sustainability in healthcare. Take care. Thank you to EcoloPharm for sponsoring the Sustainability in Healthcare and Pharmacy series. Without their generous support, this series would not be possible. EcoloPharm is a leader in sustainable development and was the first company to offer pharmacies eco-friendly packaging products for dispensing medications. Their expertise consists in designing and manufacturing the most innovative, sustainable, and eco-friendly packaging solutions in order to help pharmacies reduce their environmental impact. EcoloPharm, an innovative packaging for a greener future. Be sure to check out more about their products at www.ecolopharm.com. And thank you, EcoloPharm, for your support once again.